Hannah Hamilton's Horrid Hullabaloo by Mary Anna Usler. This series is dedicated to all the wonderful Hewitt girls I was privileged to teach, with a special thanks to Savannah Rosen for her invaluable help. Chapter 12, Terrible Thoughts. While Hannah was thinking of what all of this might mean, a thought flashed through her brain, startling her almost as much as the text had. I hate these horrid girls. They're all spoiled brats. Hannah couldn't remember thinking such a thing. Besides, she didn't hate all the girls or any of them, even Summer. She wasn't sure if ghosts could hate. If I could, I would have ripped up every single one of their drawings. You did this on purpose, Summer stamped her feet. You threw my drawings out because you didn't want me to win. I would never do such a thing, Mrs. Davinglass argued. I love you girls, as though you were my own. Then Hannah knew. She could read Mrs. Davinglass's thought, and right now they weren't kind. Hannah turned her attention to Summer, hoping she could do the same. But when Hannah concentrated really hard, all she could see were brown spots. Looking at Beatrice, white spots danced in front of Hannah's eyes. She turned towards Grace, hoping she could learn what all this had meant. But Grace had disappeared, along with the text on Summer's phone. Now Mrs. Davinglass was thinking about the pink diamond. I know that it's here somewhere in the library, and I don't believe that it's a coincidence that Mrs. Merriweather fell and broke her hip the night the diamond disappeared. If she did take it, then she could hardly bring it to the hospital with her. She must have hidden it somewhere in this library. I'll go with you. Hannah whirled around to see Andrew standing beside her, his cold gray eyes sweeping over her. He was wearing the same pair of stained jeans and bloody t-shirt, but Hannah was hardly the person to criticize anyone's dress. She didn't bother asking Andrew how he knew that she was going anyplace. She just muttered, I've been instructed to come alone. You go alone, and you're finished. So why are you doing me this big favor? I have my reasons. Do you want to get rid of Marla or not? I guess. Hannah couldn't keep the hesitancy out of her voice. After all, Marla hadn't really done anything to her so far, except make a lot of noise. You have to find her weak spot, Andrew continued. And how do I do that? You're the one with the computer skills. He shot her a contemptuous look. Google her. See you at 9:45. In spite of his obnoxious behavior, Hannah thought Andrew's idea had merit. Maybe she could learn something about Marla, which somehow Hannah could use against her, although at this point she was unsure of how. Hannah floated in and out of the classrooms, watching the girls discuss the founding of America in small groups, writing algebra formula on the whiteboards, reading silently while texting busily under their desks. She finally discovered the computer room on the 4th floor. Little second graders were seated on big chairs doing research on extinct animals. Mrs. Maple, I have to go to the bathroom. A little girl with 2 perfect French braids raised her hands. You know where the bathroom is, Tristan. Mrs. Maple was an older woman, bent over, resembling a water can. This was Hannah's chance. She stood in front of Tristan's computers and one out of the pictures of the doodle bird and Googled Marla Mendelbright. It took several seconds before an image of Marla appeared on the scene. Hannah was surprised to see how pretty Marla had been, with auburn hair, large green eyes, and a freckled face. She was smiling. She was happy. Although according to some of the news items, Marla, who had died when she was 19 years old, 5 years ago, had been in and out of trouble. She had a history of shoplifting, starting fights in bowling alleys, bullying younger girls, and driving while drinking, which was finally killed her. Mrs. Maple, Tristan's computer's going crazy. A plump little girl with a face like a lollipop stared at the computer, open mouthed. Mrs. Maple took her time sauntering over. There was a sudden hush in the room, and then suddenly noise erupted, and everyone began talking at once. Who's Marla Maples? She an extinct animal? It's moving on its own. Look. Oh, dear. Mrs. Maple made a loud tisk noise as she pushed forward. She quickly withdrew her hand as though she received a shock. "Are you all right, Mrs. Maple? Should I call Mrs. Applegate? I'm scared. I want to go home." "Tristan's computer is possessed." It was time for Hannah to make her exit. Andrew was there promptly at 9:45. At least that's what the clock wall said. But as Hannah led her way to St. Hedwig, she wondered again why Andrew offered to come. He had made it clear that he didn't particularly like her. For all she knew, he was the one who sent the text, and she had stepped into a snake pit. He did give her the hint about researching Marla's life, but just how had that been helpful? In a flash, they were at St. Hedwig's. The first clue that something was wrong was that the entire building seemed deserted. No children ghosts were lingering in the hall. And at first it appeared that no one was in the chapel either. Then she saw him, sitting by the altar. She spotted the ghost of a priest. He was actually kneeling down, looking very disgruntled. When he saw her, whipped around and started to say something. But as soon as his wrinkled mouth opened wide, his white hair stuck straight up. Hannah turned around. Andrew was gone. Suddenly, Hannah felt herself spinning like an out-of-control dreidel. She felt as though she was being sucked down in a manhole. The noise drumming in her ears was deafening, a resounding, ear-splitting roar. A freezing wind blew her off of her feet and into the air, bursting through the roof of the chapel and heading towards the bare trees. "No!" Hannah screamed. The only response was a gleeful screech as a dark figure blundered through her.